All right. Hello, friends and fellow gamers. My name is TempestMask1000, and welcome one and all to the first of a little double billing of myself, and featuring a couple of indie titles that I absolutely appreciate. And this is going to be Blaster Master Zero, what I would probably argue is one of the best choices to have for a marathon like this one. Of course, it is a game that is a co-team effort between that of Inti Creates as well as Sunsoft, the original developers of the very game that started it all, and this is actually a sequel to the Japanese version. So what you're about to see is basically Blaster Master 2, but in a different way. So with that in mind, I've also got a good friend of mine on commentary and a member of the Blaster Master community, a avid runner of the original game, and that is, of course, David TKI. David?
Hello, I'm David, and yeah, I run the original Blaster Master, as well as the actual Blaster Master 2 for Genesis.
That's true, and what can I tell you? It's both, I will say both Blaster Master 2s are quite an interesting experience, but let me tell y'all, there's a reason why this got a trilogy. But with that in mind, this is going to be the any percent category, which means I'm going to be going through the game as fast as possible by any means while playing as the main character, Jason Frudnick. So we're going to get started, and time will begin once I gain control of the tank. So let's see how this goes. And just keep in mind, y'all, that the hour estimate is actually a bit of a safety measure. You never know how this run can go, especially near the end. But yeah, here we go. Let's get this thing started. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so David, explain the basics.
Yeah, so basically, you start off in a tank, Sophia the Third, part of the Metal Attacker series, which is an interesting blending of the US and Japanese names. It's a tank, it jumps, and it shoots. This game should be called Jump and Shoot Tank the Musical, because the music is really good and you're in a tank that jumps and shoots. There's a lot of mutants in the area. They shoot things at you. You take a lot of damage, but luckily you're in a tank and the tank can take some damage. The way the game is going to work is that you're pretty much going to be going to the dungeon entrances where the boss of the level is, assuming, of course, that there is a dungeon entrance. The remake does mix things up a little bit by not always requiring you to go into a dungeon. So, for example, here, let's see, do you get out of the water? Yeah. You can actually hop out of your tank and then navigate as Jason Frudnick outside of the tank. So a lot of the original game involved get to the dungeon, get out of the tank, navigate the dungeon. There's going to be a lot of that in this game, but not always. Jason's got a little bit of gun. Inside the dungeon, we're going to switch to a top-down view, and you're going to have a little gun meter. And in this game, having additional gun power will open up additional weapons. And I can see in our notes that you need a level 1 gun for this, as well as some grenades.
Yes, so right now I just straight up went to the main boss of the area. The big difference between any percent and 100%, which is also what nets you the true ending of this game, is that in 100% we have to collect everything, and that requires going into the dungeons of mini-bosses in order to do so. But in this case, I'm just going straight shooting, and yeah, not much else to it. So at least for this boss, I will need a level 1, because some bosses have special reactions to certain gun levels, and in the case of this one, it's actually the first level, which is kind of funny, but also fair enough, because this essentially makes the quick kill a little bit easier to handle, but it still requires a bit of mashing, as well as spatial awareness, as you'll see in just a bit. For now, though, yeah, not much to say except let's get ready for a little sudden journey, a wrong warp to planet Zebus.
Right, because the first boss is Mother Brain. And Metric players wish Mother Brain was this easy. I do have some questions about Zero 1. In Zero 2, bosses had a weakness and they had a second weakness, and most of the boss fights there would be apply both weaknesses, and then while the boss is stunned from them, mash down the health bar. Is that the same thing here?
Practically so, yeah. The weakness essentially is what allows for the stunning, and yeah, basically it allows for the stunning and easier time of damaging. I don't believe, however, it does more damage, unlike later games, which takes a little more of the Mega Man sort of DNA that Inti Creates likes to throw in, because, as it were, Inti Creates is the developer behind the Mega Man Zero and ZX games, and a lot of the tropes that they were very familiar with in making those games does sort of carry over to the Blaster Master Zero trilogy, which is for better or for worse. Now, a quick mention about skipping cutscenes that's actually going to throw some of you off. This is actually one of the reasons why, if you want to pick up this game as a run, I would highly encourage playing through casually first, because any dialogue, it can't be skipped until you've experienced it already within the game. So, by that point, I can press start and then just skip it outright. But now we're entering Area 2, and similar to Area 1, again, it's just a straight jaunt to, well, the boss. But there's a bit of danger involved in this one, and I'm actually not sure why I picked up the checkpoint, but hey, that's okay. Checkpoints, though. So, dying in this game can actually be a bit risky. It's not like the game has a life system, unlike the original Blaster Master. The thing is, though, it will push you back into the nearest checkpoint or big entrance that you've entered. And I'm pretty sure by that extension that does mean area gates. So, in a way, I don't really need the checkpoint, but, you know, just in case. The real kicker, though, is that any progress that you might have gained by the time you die will be lost. So this game can be a little bit punishing in that sort of way, especially with enemies like the low-riding caterpillars, which I'm actually taking very cautiously, because as you can see right there, they are not easily hittable unless I either use Jason, or if I were to hit them with my sub-weapon, which is the triple missile. And get used to that, because in any percent, we do not go for any of the optional upgrades, which is a dang shame, because there are quite a few helpful ones for sure. Especially the Spark Tackle, which would essentially be the sort of speed tech, basic enough speed tech involved with a game like this.
Yeah. And like Area 2 is pretty deceptively dangerous, because it doesn't seem like much at first, but there's acid pools and bugs all over the place. And it seems like every single stray shot is going straight for you. So it's easy to take a lot of damage really quickly and then have to start the level over again.
By the way, in case you're wondering what's up with the radar, that's sort of an automatic sort of gimmick. You can actually turn it on and off in the pause menu. I'm opting not to do so because, of course, I don't really need to, but in some cases of Jason's story, it will mandatorily turn on. And funnily enough, there's actually a point in the true ending where you actually do have to have that on, so knock on wood. But aside from that, there's not really... that was a little unfortunate.
Yeah. This level is deceptively difficult.
As he said. And unfortunately, too, Sophia does not have a lot of iframes. In fact, you do not have a lot of iframes in this game at all. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to lose just a bit of time for that death. But it's just a simple retreading of where exactly I was. And the best part, too, is that the game does give you a full heal whenever you respawn. Which, actually, I could have done for safety's sake, but I actually wanted to go for it. It's not really that costly in time if I did the safety retry, though, so from here on out, whenever I do feel the need to, I will. It's just because, you know, it's, loading screens are not all that problematic, but yeah, no, I don't necessarily want to have to see too many of those. By the way, if you're for those curious, I am playing on the Xbox version. Most people who have run the game would have either played on the Switch version or potentially the PC version, though that's the thing. This game is also available for PlayStation and 3DS, so there's actually quite a few platforms that it had, and of course the 3DS does drop with the other two titles, but all the same, it's still a really cool game to do no matter what platform. They actually optimized this decently well. It's funny too, though, because there is a very slight difference in the Xbox version with something that I'm going to do. Oh, hold on a second, though. This is, yeah, more caterpillar trouble. Whew! This gave me a scare there. But now I'm in...
Too short for Sophia's cannon to reach.
Yeah, and that's just one of the things that makes them absolutely aggravating. But now we are entering the lair of Area 2's boss. And this is where things are going to get interesting because we got a bit of a floody floor gimmick where I'm actually going to take just a little bit of intentional damage here. Then I'm going to stay right there. I'm actually doing this for safety. Thing is, I normally would think to just push myself forward, keep going on and on and on, just danger be danged or whatever. But the reason I'm doing it is because I actually got a couple of nice gun upgrades that I managed to keep within the last dungeon, and I would like to continue to have those if possible. It's not necessarily going to be guaranteed, though, because if you didn't notice, I am losing a gun level every time I take damage. A shame, because I do have to actually cross this by taking a point here, which, you know, that's unfortunate. And then there will be a... And actually, I'm probably not going to keep any of this at all. Let's at least penetrate the stuff with my level 2. Just to play it a little conveniently. Alright, I'm already at full health. Derp. But
yeah, some of those gun upgrades are really helpful, and like in the NES version, like we do want those upgrades as well, but there's just so much damage that can't realistically keep them. But in Blaster Master Zero, it's quite a bit more important to actually have your gun upgrade, because there are a few bosses that if you have to use the basic weapons, you're gonna get nowhere.
And speaking of bosses that thankfully we do have a good enough gun for, thanks to the pre-boss chamber drops, introducing the fabulous Crabulus. And no, unlike Scavenger 216, we will not be despawning him. That's a famous...
We have never reproduced that.
Yeah, I know, which is a shame. Oh, well, he's already given me a little bit of trouble. So, theoretically, I could have used level 2... Oh, well, that's just a shame. Okay, I'm going to take a bit of a safety here because I actually do want to keep at least the level 2. The Penetrator gun actually is good for trying to... And this also, by the way, this also will give me a couple of extra gun that will make a later world a little bit easier to traverse, at least assuming I do keep those. But as I was about to say, level 2 is what will stun Crabulus here. The reason I'm trying to turn him around is because I'm trying to be as close to the top of the room, which is where the post-boss power-up will spawn. Okay. Yeah, at this point, it's just...
Oh yeah, you actually pause and stop moving while he blows up, don't you?
Yeah, it's kinda, sorta.
I'm sorry, was I distracting you while you were in a battle for your life?
Nope, not at all. Never. What? Couldn't be anyone. But as I was really about to say, we now have acquired another upgrade for Sophia's tank and found Eve. And so, Eve is going to be our secondary protagonist, basically our navigator of sorts, if you're familiar with the term from the X games, which, hey, we just had Mega Man X7 before, so there you go. Eve is basically Alia, but she does not try to constantly contact us through the game. Rather, there are optional side conversations that in the pause menu you can get engaged with, and it's really nice. Not only does she give you a few tip reminders, but also some of the conversations do a little bit of lore discussing as well, so it's a really cool detail that I can't help but appreciate Inti Creates for throwing in there. Now that we have defeated Crabulus, though, with the Crusher Shot upgrade, I can essentially do what Mother Brain's upgrade gave me, except, well, first and foremost, the level 1 upgrade I got was what allowed me to destroy that mouth enemy. And now we can destroy rubble, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of silly. But now for a bit of a particular trick that's going to make things especially interesting. I'll let David explain what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that not all levels have you actually going into a dungeon to fight the boss of the level. Well, this is going to be one of those levels. So we have to get all the way through this area to the boss, and we're never going to hop out of our tank at any point. So we've taken a checkpoint at the beginning of the level, because the other thing that we have to do after we beat the boss is that we're going to have to backtrack back to Area 1. So we need to get all the way through this area without going into any dungeons, without touching any other save points, and without dying, which is no easy feat with all these ceiling enemies, these walls coming in to try to crush us. And, you know, sometimes you can only bring those walls down a little bit and then go. And if you do that, then you have even more danger.
I think the most danger, though, especially comes from what happens if you try to go through the green crushers by letting go of the conveyor belt early, because you noticed that with those, they have these little slotted grid things that essentially have the wall stop at a certain point and it stays there. But if you were to disengage that, then they drop much faster than the yellow ones, and that can just cause you more damage than you ever want. And that's the thing, too. Sophia will take continuous damage. It's actually not an instant crush kill. So, yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. Yeah, no, like in Doom. That's actually a very good point there. You can also, I think David might have mentioned this, but yeah, you can shoot the yellow walls up. You can actually keep them up, which is what I'm trying to do to just not have to push them too far in and stuff. I'm actually going to take a bit of a safety here, though. So I mentioned that you really don't, that the run preferably has you not collect any optional upgrades, but I'm actually going to get that life up because it only really takes a couple of seconds away from me, and really it's not the worst thing to have an extra point of health, which, as you might have noticed within that brief flash of description, applies to both Jason and Sophia, so there you go. And now for a bit of a Sophia staple.
Armor.
That's right.
One of the best upgrades of the game.
Very much so. But now, no need to fear, for Central Gear is here. This guy is very RNG heavy, and I want him to do a certain attack right off the gate. That's perfect. It's exactly what I want him to do.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then you're trying to shoot into that opening, and the opening doesn't always line up. The triple missile can get in there if the opening doesn't line up, but you don't have a lot of SP for triple missiles.
And with that, I now get to perform the trick by doing the following. I'm going to initiate a save, which you can actually do via the pause menu. It still is going to thrust you back to the checkpoint when you reload the save, though, but that's exactly what I want to do here, because, remember, we didn't have any checkpoints until the very beginning, and just like that, I've saved myself at least a minute or so of backtracking to the gate of Area 3. Or 2.
And so now we're going back to Area 1 to find the entrance to Area 4, which we need the hover module to get to. You know, one really neat thing about this game, if you look at the SP bar, you can see that it's slowly recharging on its own. That doesn't happen in the original game.
In fact, it's a hover bar. The difference between the two is that Sophia had special ammunition for the 3 different types of sub-weapons, between the homing missiles, the spread missiles, and the lightning breaker. But in this game, the lightning breaker and homing missiles are collectible yet optional upgrades, and everything pulls from the SP bar, as does the hover. But of course, the hover also had its own bar in the original game, and you had to find certain hover ammunition drops from enemies, which was one of the biggest ways of time loss in the original game for sure.
Yeah, so that kind of makes Zero fun to run in this regard, because instead of having to selectively use hover at certain specific points depending on whether or not you found any refills, just use it. It's there to help.
Very much. But now I'm going to try and conserve the SP and let it recover as much as I can, as I'm going to now re-reach the very starting point of the run, which is where I'm going to then be using the hover to then bring myself to Area 4's gate. And yeah, as you can tell, that's another clear pull from the original game as well. Except I do believe it was it Area 7 or was it a different one?
That is what?
This area, was it Area 4 as well that the original game brings you to here, or is it a different one?
Yes, it's Area 4. The Zero map is largely the same, except that Area 7 is where Area 8 was, and Area 8 is beyond Area 7.
And there's also an Area 9, but we don't have to talk about that today. Because that is, once again, true ending, classified material. And that would be the 100% run. Because that's the thing. This game actually does require you to 100% the game if you want the true ending, which none of the other Zero games do, in all fairness. But I can understand that in this game's design, it's to encourage players to become as powerful as possible, which is good. But yeah, no, it's kind of funny how vastly different the requirements are between this and then 0, 2, and 3.
Yeah, in 0-2, true ending adds about 20 minutes to the runtime, but in this game, it's like, it adds 2 hours.
Yeah, unfortunately. And yet, it's probably one of the most interesting categories. The good news is that... Oh, I almost hit that check. I almost thought I hit that checkpoint.
Don't hit that checkpoint.
I wasn't gonna. So I should probably mention that just like with Area 3, my objective is to defeat the area boss and do the very same warp trick that I did by using the save function, but Area 4 can be a little bit daunting for a couple of reasons. First is this obvious little pool of water. This should be the only time I have to swim through something like that, though, thank goodness, because Sophia does, as David mentioned, or might have mentioned, does not currently move well in water, and so the only way to drain that pool, though, is to destroy this gunk blocking the filter. And there is, what I'm about to do, should be the way to the boss chamber without having to do that again. So, yeah, it's practically memorized, but sometimes I also, like, have this habit of second-guessing myself, because that's just how it is.
Area 4 is very maze-like, and a lot of the maze looks the same. It's hard to navigate, regardless of version.
Yeah.
This version of Area 4 has a lot of bad guys on the walls and the ceilings coming everywhere. So it is really difficult to get through this gauntlet with your tank intact.
These especially can be a bit of a jerk, because their stingers don't necessarily home in on you, but the amount of reach they can still get you if your current thought process is just move, move, move. But now for a little bit of a throwback, done a bit differently. I know Scavenger likes to call this Frog the Fred, but here we have Ribberol, and this boss is gonna go bye-bye in at least 10 seconds.
Yeah, the rate at which the boss dies depends on how good your mash is. Or does it take more damage when its mouth opens?
I don't believe it does. But yeah, I had to collect, unlike with Central Gear, I did have to collect that item, Key 1, which if I didn't that and just initiated the title screen again, that would have been absolutely awkward. Oop. I did not need to do that. So that little menu right there is exclusive to the Xbox version because Xbox games have it where you can press the start button or whatever button to change your profile. But yeah, don't mind that. I'm obviously playing off of my very own profile, and that's all there really is to it. Oh shoot, that was a bit of a miss. So it's gonna waste just a little bit more time, but it's not the worst. And like I said, having done that pause trick, or rather the return to title menu and save successfully, that saves quite a bit of backtracking. And whoop, oh, I was afraid about the fall damage there. Dang it! I don't usually have to do a second time, but
Yeah, this room is taking some cues from both the Japanese and US versions of the NES game. Because in the Japanese version, you had to jump and then grab a ladder, but in the US version, you just had to navigate some platforms and ladders.
And that was Butterfingers. So, yeah, that's one of the big downsides about having to do Jason in the overworld. He is very susceptible to fall damage. After a certain amount of blocks of a fall, you do not want to touch the ground. If he hits the water, he's fine, just like I demonstrated there again. But yeah, unfortunately, he will die if he falls from a certain height, which might as well seem a bit unfair, because at the very least, something like, say, Spark the Electric Jester 3 gives you a little bit of a warning. But alas.
Yeah, I think there's a reason that 03 finally decided, you know what, we're giving Jason a jetpack so he doesn't do that anymore.
Exactly. And thank heavens for that, let me tell you. Yeah, 03 might be one of the longest runs of the Zero Trilogy period, but that doesn't stop it from having some of the best stuff within the series, no doubt about it. Alright, now we're moving on to Area 5, which is the ocean area, and, yeah, unsurprisingly, I have to navigate water. Oh wait, I forgot to press start. I'm a bit of a dummy. But here we are, sinking very slowly. Oh no, wait, no, game, please, I didn't mean to go that way. Well, this is going swimmingly.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
This one's going underwater fast.
But yeah.
I'm a dad, get used to it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, the dad jokes are legitimate, folks. You can rest assured. Alright, but alright, just a bit more sinking to go. Yeah, unfortunately I have to bring Sophia down here because there we go, another mouth enemy, and I have to bust it down with my gun. Unfortunately, Jason can't really do that himself, so at this point I'm going to drop the tank off here because the whole purpose is that Jason, well, actually, maybe not a bad idea to just strip this, just in case. But yeah, the whole idea is that Jason has to undergo a bit of swimming in order to then make his way through a couple of areas, particularly this side-scrolling swimming gauntlet here, where I wouldn't have been able to bring Sophia into anyway. But then this is also kind of important because we are actually trying to make our way to getting the very upgrade that will help us swim as Sophia as well. So yeah, not really too much to discuss per se, but I can at least explain the very reason why I wanted to make sure I had some good gun level before going into the top downs. And that's because I want to make sure I have level 7, the wave gun, or sorry, I believe that's actually level 8, right? I can count.
Yeah, the maximum gun, right?
Yeah, the wave gun is what a lot of people consider to be busted, like the most busted gun in the game, which it is. But technically, I would also argue that the most busted gun in the game is level 5, the Striker, or 6 rather, because 5 is a reflect gun. But yeah, I'll just a little down here, and then I have to push myself onto the ground and then press down while on the ground to duck, otherwise the current will push me away no matter what I do. Alright, here's where things get a little bit tricky, because we got these little moving platforms right here, and that is unfortunate. I actually think it would have been nice if I could have beaten that little guard enemy while I had access to his position, because yeah, now the gun power-up's gone, I can't really pick it up, but that's okay. If all goes well, I'll at least have level 4. It's all dependent on what this security turret drops. Oh god. Yep. It's a daunting enemy though, let me tell you, because that laser can be especially aggressive. Okay, that's not too bad. Oh,
I got it, looking good.
Oh, what was that? Very mysterious. Well, apparently Earth's sea life has gotten weird within the underground biomes. By the way, oh crud, I shouldn't have aggroed that fella. Then again, that is kind of what the world record holder does, to try and get more gun. Oh well, I'm just going to avoid it because I really don't need to, and rather I'm going to do just a tad bit of farming while avoiding getting sniped by another guard that was out of view but was still trying to shoot me. Yeah, screen wrapping limits mean nothing in a game like this one, by the way. Oh, okay, that's one. And if I step off the platforms, oh, that was close. I don't die, but I do take damage, which is much less punishing than the original Blaster Master, where falling into something like that does instant kill you. And everybody get your salutes out for our fish friend in 3, 2, there we go. Probably the most graphically violent this game ever gets, surprisingly. Despite the otherwise, I believe it's rated T rating. Alright, here's hoping. Okay, that was... Yeah, I should have just equipped Reflect for that one. Oh yeah, that's especially grand. Well, yeah, here comes even more farming, but that's fairly acceptable. If anything, I'd rather take that. Okay, so the nice thing about...
Wave really does help with the next boss quite a bit.
So that's actually good.
Like, enough so that my earliest runs of the NES version got the equivalent weapon. It's that useful.
Yeah. Alright, let's see if I can get it here. Oh, no, thank you. He didn't move. That's good. But I still need one more gun power. There we go. Now I'm ready. And, yeah, that's the thing. You notice that anything under a crate, any, like, little pickups will respawn whenever I do re-enter the room. So, that's very helpful. That's a very helpful thing about this game. No question about that at all. Alright, now for the very fiend that did the little dirty act of nature's food chain. This very mutant is the Abyssal Predator Hardshell, or as Scav likes to call Zoidberg. Sorry, I had to. Okay, so...
That was excellent.
Yeah, it was good. It was decent. Alright. So, yeah, just a little bit of seafood on the menu, no big deal. And I assure you our preservatives will assure that this dish will not spread the infection to your system, guaranteed. Or something along those lines. Alright, we have acquired the dive gear. Now, a little risky move I feel like I could have pulled off, potentially speaking, was if I avoided all checkpoints leading up to the boss, I probably could have respawned right in front of where the diving as Jason himself starts. But that's gonna just cost a lot of time if you manage to screw that one up big time. But I imagine that it could be a huge time-saving technique if only it were just ever so viable. Which it is, but the idea is that it's not necessarily worth pursuing. Alright, now to get us on over to Area 6. But of course, I have to engage this mouth enemy again, which, hey, no big deal really. In case you didn't notice, Jason in the overworld takes double the damage of what Sophia can, so I gotta be a little considerate of that. And now, we're gonna do something a little interesting because there's a way to get out that the game prefers that we do, but rather we can just swim against this current and save a little bit of time that way. We also get to see a bunch of diver enemies essentially play Sudoku. Because apparently they are susceptible to the spikes as much as we are.
They should get hazard pay for that.
Yeah, probably. Well, anyway, we have now entered Area 6, and Yatogami in chat mentions he caught me slipping. Well, guess what? We got some ice physics. So you weren't wrong, buddy. You weren't wrong. Oh, yeah. This is especially the most daunting world of the game, I would have to say. Second to Area 8 for sure.
Yeah, I think this level probably has the biggest difference between the original and the remake in terms of just how you approach it, because there's so much ice here, but more specifically, like, you're going to end up in rooms full of blocks that you have to create a path out of, going up, going sideways, going down, you know, this ice right here. And that makes the level pretty daunting to route, but even more so if you happen to be playing one of the DLC characters, because some of the DLC characters' attacks are capable of destroying those blocks, which might mean you won't necessarily go into this level having actually beaten the Area 2 boss and getting Crusher.
The most fastest of them all is Gunvolt, because some of his Mega Man Zero inspired gameplay literally breaks some of the progression within the very areas themselves. Which is also funny too, because as you might know, I'm going to be doing some Azure Striker Gunvolt a little later after this run, so knock on wood right there that I also happen to have his DLC in this very game. But yeah, no, there's quite a bit to do in Area 6, and, well, wouldn't you know it, part of it involves turning on the ice itself. Not necessarily the best thing I have to do, but unfortunately, it's what allows the progression here to be possible. As you notice, those ice blocks, I gotta break them and form platforms of my own, and if you do not manage your hover properly, this can easily be the most time loss you will experience in your run. I would say this is easily one of the worst pace killers of BMZ.
One of the worst, and then Area 8 happens.
Which, yeah, I have a few memories of that one. Just a few. Yeah, I'm gonna sit a little bit here. Yeah, alright. That's a bit like it. Alright, now for some jumping. Oh, no, well, there's a big SP power-up, so at least that's a bit gracious. Some health would be nice, though. So I'm probably gonna do a safety retry. Once I find a checkpoint. Hopefully. Okay. Or,
well, there's the dungeon.
Yeah, actually, let's do that. Let's do that. So, I think what I should be able to do is, yeah, there we go. Nice. So, control rooms are not proper dungeons, but they still count as those. So, by hitting the retry, it easily accounts for that little safety that I mentioned I would do if I felt the need. And heck, did I feel that need? Like, I feel that was necessary for sure. Also, I totally forgot to split after hard shell. Whoops. Now I'm gonna have to remember which hotkey it was to skip. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of multitasking, but yeah. So David, we're gonna actually find our little main objective here within this very area. This is the very reason for our quest, if you will.
Oh, it's the thread.
That's right. So, care to explain what the original story of OG Blaster Master is?
US or Japanese?
US, obviously.
Okay, so in the original US, Jason was looking at his frog, and then the frog got out, and then ate a box of plutonium in the backyard, and then went down a hole.
In this game, it takes both the Japanese plot and the US plot and essentially combines them together. Because, like I said, this is an official sequel of the Japanese version, where in that case, the mutants were part of this alien force called the Invem, which was invading the planet Sophia. Not necessarily the tank being called Sophia, but rather the planet. So, in that case, Kane Gardner was the pilot of the Metal Attacker, which was the name of the tank in that version. And then, yeah, basically he decided, or rather, no, he didn't decide, but he had the obligation to basically, save the world. Okay, I gotta be a little careful here. That'll be a bit of a climb if I'm not. Sure. The nice thing about being able to skip some of the control rooms is that those hovering bots do not activate. They only do when the temperature turns cold, and so the icicle attacks, those only happen under those circumstances and whatnot. Alright, now for the one area boss that is the most manageable is Jason, but as any other character, good luck. You'll need it. One nice touch, by the way, as you're seeing right now, is that my flame gun, actually I might as well show it off, is that I can melt ice. So the flamethrower gun actually serves as a legitimate flamethrower, which is very, very, very handy. But it does slow me down because while I'm holding the shoot button, Jason does walk a bit slower while strafing and using it, so yeah. Alright, now...
Yeah, I'm looking at these notes and it says, be sure to have Striker at the ready before this fight.
Here we heckin' go.
And here's why you want to have Striker ready, because there are like 100 targets on the wall. They all open up at different times, but Striker chains from one target to another. So you shoot a few times, and every time you do, you take out like nearly all of them. So yeah, the Striker weapon makes this fight a lot more manageable.
That's a rare one. I don't usually see that this boss do that. Alright, there's just one left. If I can just snipe it. Got it. Woo! Let's go. That was...
Any other character has to take him out one by one.
Yeah. That was not too bad, though. That could have went way, way worse. I'm pretty much on pace as far as things go, actually. Like, had things been managed a little differently, we could definitely say that's a guaranteed PB, but for now I'm just more focused on doing things as I should, and that's all there is to it. Maybe I should have retried there, but you know what? I'm gonna go for it because might as well. I think I can play it safe enough. But now we have what is probably the most thought back to upgrade when people think between Zero and the OG, and that is the wall drive. This actually, I'm gonna do the safety trick right here. That's actually very good thought, if I do say so myself. But yeah, the wall drive in this game, because you have extra buttons that you can use as compared to the NES controller, how they made it work is that instead of automatically driving up a wall when Sophia touches it while on the ground, instead you have to hold the trigger buttons, at least by default. You can remap the buttons to your choosing, but yeah, I just keep it that way. I actually use a slightly different mapping from default, where my fire button, at least in the control scheme of the Xbox controller, is that I shoot with X and sub-weapon with Y, while also pressing B to eject Jason out of the tank. So that's basically it.
One of the things I liked to do in Zero 2 was to have my default shoot weapon, but then map one of my bumper shortcuts to also be weapon, so that I could tap two buttons to spam more quickly.
I imagine that's especially doable in the PC version, because multiple button bindings are usually catered to PC versions. So, yeah, it is what it is. Really, though, I do think, if I'm not mistaken, that the current world record holder Diogin of any percent did do this run on the Switch, so any platform of BMZ is competitive viable. One of the potential benefits, though, of running this on the Xbox is that because this has Series XS support, is that you could potentially make the loading screens go even faster. But one strange quirk that this version has, which the Switch version doesn't, is that there actually is a soft reset code. Inti Creates loves throwing in the good old soft reset as a throwback to when they made handheld game. And this especially applies in this game too, where you hold the shoulder buttons and then press, I believe it's start and select. And then what happens is you would get sent back to the title screen. But in the Xbox version, oddly enough, how that works is you still see Inti Creates and Sunsoft's Splash logos, where the Switch version just takes you instantly back to the title screen. I am not sure why that's the case, but I can only imagine this was just the way of the programming from the Xbox port team, because the credits do list a Xbox port team behind this version and stuff, so I can only imagine that it's that the PS and PC version have this thing going for it as well. It's likely, anyway. I don't know for sure. It does, however, have me question the possibility of whether or not this means some of the programming behind the Xbox version of Zero 2 is different as well. After all, in the Xbox version, there was never a need to patch the game to update it, unlike some of the other ports. And so, in that case, some part of me wonders if by any chance that the Xbox version of 02 somehow kept in a skip that was patched out before the first DLC character, Copen, officially launched. Which, by the way, it's a bit unfortunate because Inti Creates is usually good about keeping any speed tech or strats or stuff found in the games, but not all the time, and sadly that was the case for BMZ2. And let me assure you, it's not the worst thing, but it definitely caused quite a bit of burnout for the leaderboard, I can say.
Yeah, just a bit. My theory on that whole thing was that 02 had some engine created for Switch, and then in order to support multi-platform, they redid the engine somehow, and that changed a lot of stuff.
Which is very likely. After all, the PC version of 02 came out when the Copen DLC was already out, and Peck, to prove that part of the promotion was that you could get the Copen DLC for free for a certain period of time. Seeing, though, that apparently the Metafight collection release doesn't have soft reset thing that I had just mentioned, which that's actually interesting to think about. So it's very likely then that the quirk I mentioned here on the Xbox is indeed exclusive to Xbox, and I would say definitely bears worth some testing out for. And by the way, in case you're curious about the Metafight collection, that's actually a little something that technically kind of is Japanese exclusive. It's still supposedly, and I say supposedly in the loosest way, is possible to find copies, physical copies of it, which, by the way, do support English text, and the Switch is region free, so there you go, as well as the PS4, if I'm not mistaken. So, if you want to experience Blaster Master 0, 1, 2, and 3 with some specially included Japanese voice acting, definitely look into getting the Metafight collection. You will not be disappointed. They actually picked some really cool voice actors. One of which being that Jason's Japanese voice actor did Giorno Giovanna from JoJo Part 5, and I kid you not. There's also the likes of, I believe it was Stein, a character that first gets introduced in 02, and his voice actor was Serpent, the main villain of ZX, which, yeah, is really interesting to see how Inti Creates likes to keep some of their contacts in mind for future projects. Really cool company overall, I gotta say.
Yeah, so we finally finished backtracking all the way back to Area 3 so that we could then get into Area 7, which is the lava area. So there's pretty much going to be two things characterizing this area. There's all these enemies with searchlights. Well, this is kind of a stealth section, kind of.
Oops.
Because if you get spotted in a spotlight, then alarms are going to start blaring, worms are going to drop out of the ceilings, and then you're going to get attacked by everything.
But you see, the trick is that we actually do want that to happen with the worms anyway. The enemies, nah, those ape-like mutants will go berserk on us, and that can be a bit punishing if done very poorly. But they're not the worst things around, and it is possible to just mash them. Like you just saw me intentionally aggro that one. Okay, actually, that was probably a bad idea. Oh god, I am hindering my own run. Oops.
I'm guessing you would probably see a lot more YOLO in 100%.
Potentially. But yeah, hang on a second. I gotta just drive down. Because in cases of... Oh! Well, that's why I hit the checkpoint. Sections like those, you're supposed to use the gun to break stuff. But, yeah, no. I just wanna go fast, really. Alright, cool. Progressing fairly smoothly. It's just a matter of making my way up through. Got some more worms to bust. Actually could have, I think that was actually one of the ones, though, that I could have avoided. And, yeah, these fellas are essentially, like, upgraded versions of the green worms. Not necessarily fun. They're not buffed to the maximum, though. And that right there was an example of trying to go through those sensors right. Because doing it right means you've essentially positioned yourself to the point that your spread missiles will wipe out as many worms as possible. Oh boy. Those hoppers, though, do not care about the fact that this area tries to be stealthy. Okay, just further on. There we go. Okay. Still some more stealth to be had, though, because this area also introduces some very, very aggressive enemies. So you saw the blue soldier-like mutants within some of the top-down sections, but now we got some red ones. I think they're practically... No, actually, they're not exclusive to this area. They do show up in 8. I know that for a fact. But the idea is that if you do get within their sight cone, all of them within the room will go after Jason, and it is especially not good. But
every single one
of them. I would have preferably wanted to have the striker gun by now, but I'm just gonna have to play it safe. You know what? That's fine with me. Now, those spotlight enemies that create those gooey mutants, those do not activate the sentries, but any sentry that sees me will get the attention of his buddies. And we made it. That's perfect. Lost a little bit of time with what I could have done, because again, having the striker gun would have meant that I could just try to start chaining them at a certain point. But honestly, I think this was for the better. And now for another throwback boss. This time we got the skeleton boss. He's a bit of a fan favorite, too. He hits a couple of variations within 0, 2, and 3, so I can imagine he was a pretty popular fella. Perhaps either by the fans or the devs themselves, really.
Yeah, he was on the cartridge of the US NES card.
And technically
quite
appears in the game. Yeah, very much so. Okay, hang on. Oh, no, I do not like to rock. Okay, that's a bit...
This is a fairly tricky fight at times, because you're here without a tank, and you can't really fight the thing without a tank. So you're trying to make your way up to the ladder without getting caught, so that you can go to the lever to bring the platform down that has your tank on it. Because you need that tank to fight it all.
Oh yeah. So let's see what the heck happens this time, because that wasn't supposed to happen. Now, the platforming does look a little daunting, yes, but it's really not the worst when you know what you're doing. Now, the energy ball attack, that's a little more frustrating. Ugh! Yeah, because Jason getting hit on the ladder is no good either. But the thing about Jason climbing ladders, he actually, in order to, get on one, he has to sort of do it in a certain way that involves you pressing the jump button. But yeah, there we go. The boss is down. And now we are about to open our way to the final area of the game. But of course, this is where the rubber hits the road. Oh boy. I am a little bit nervous about this, not gonna lie. We are at full health, so it does help. But the SP is trying to recharge, so there is that. So here in Area 8, we are inside what is essentially the mutant source within the Earth itself. And it is the inside of a gigantic living mutant organism where the very overlord of the mutants is residing as well. And that's kind of the whole point. See, when we first found her, she didn't really know who she was, but was very adept at operating Sophia and helping us out, so we decided, hey, maybe not the worst idea to have her along. Turns out that she eventually remembers who she is, and she's the support android to Sophia 3rd. And yeah, it's quite the lore. All right, hold on a second though.
Yeah.
Dang!
So
I was
Area
hoping
8's
I could slip
danger.
past that.
Yeah. Area 8 is really dangerous because in Area 8, the devs, they stop holding back at all, and they throw everything at you. There's worms everywhere, jellyfish everywhere, and then the walls are absolutely covered in spikes. Enemies are there, and they're trying to knock you into those spikes, and then you can't get out of the spikes because the spikes are interrupting your jump that you're doing to get out of the spikes.
Spikes,
It's a fun
spikes.
time.
Yeah.
Area 8 has spikes. Did I mention that?
Yes.
Okay, well, Area 8 has spikes. And lots of them.
Another benefit to doing the 100% routing, though, is that having the lightning breaker, it actually does do a little spread effect in the water, which allows for an easier time with the not Metroids, if you will. But other than that, let me just give a bit of serious time to try and plan this out, because if I fail again, that's more backtracking, and I do not like that. Okay, I got a little bit of health. That's preferable. Dang it. One more hit, though, and I'm dead again. Whoop! Oh! Ah! And that's why bees are jerks. I thought I had that one. I actually thought I had that one. And this is why I did submit that safety estimate. I will admit, I am not a top-level runner of this game, but I do intend to change that in due time, and I know that there's going to be room for it eventually. But for now, it seems like this will not quite be it. That is okay.
Area 8 never holds back. It never shows mercy.
Not even in the original.
Oh, it's worse than the original.
I would agree. Whoop. Yeah, I didn't think so. Like I said, very short iframes. Very short iframes, punishingly so. Alright. Now I'm going to have to force my hand and really take things carefully, like, the entire way through. At least until we get further down the way. Because there's still a bit of game left. So, this is actually the one instance of an area where you have to take on a what would seemingly look like an optional mini-boss, but in fact is not. We have to go into the lair of the antibody cell in order to claim one more key, because there are a couple of locked doors that bar the way to the Mutant Lord's chamber. And so that's actually what I'm going to have to do. Now, the dungeon itself, those mini-dungeons are not as daunting. I think the worst part about that one in particular would really just be the enemies, which I believe are called cell rejections. But yeah, they're these giant amoeba-looking things. There we go. That's a little bit better. And a quick detail, in case you're wondering what goo blocks are going to spawn that particular enemy, it's the ones that have the more solid-looking center. So basically, if it's a dark-looking circle in the center of the block, be wary that you're going to have an enemy try to come at you when you break it, which in some cases you kind of have to. It's kind of the way things are. Okay, now we've gotten a little bit safer, thank goodness. Okay, but now I'm getting tossed around again, so let's just try and breathe. You got this.
It's like in Celeste.
Yes, it was a fantastic game, by the way. Please, if y'all want like a very wonderful game with a wonderful story, I would say Blaster Master Zero has a fantastic story, but Celeste, oh yeah, it's such a good game, such a fantastic game. Oh. There we go. A little looking low on health, but I have a bit of confidence. As Inugame Korone would say, have confidence. And I have just a little.
That's a big health drop.
Very much so. The RNG deities have blessed me a little. See if I can get that one too, just in case. Okay, cool. So, like I said, we got to go to a secondary dungeon in order to get a mandatory item. And after that, it's pretty much straightforward as it can be. Now, depending on how bad this gets, could go a little overestimate. Not the worst thing, but it certainly would have helped if I had the striker gun. Because now we have these roaming enemies in red. In case it wasn't obvious, yeah, they will track me even when I'm going. They will track me in multiple directions. They'll try to go after me even if I'm facing a different direction entirely. Okay.
They're really mean.
Very much so.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like you don't really have time to bait them out and then move.
This is going to be considerably slower than what I would have hoped to get, but honestly, I'm just going for it anyway. Could be much worse. So here we have the antibody cell, which is going to spawn these shields. And one of the benefits of having the striker gun would be to take care of that as much as possible. For now, just use the grenades. Because these things can drop power-ups like that. That's a start. Okay, almost there. Nice.
Well done.
All
That
right.
default weapon is really hard to use.
Mm-hmm. But hey, I do like a good little bit clutch moment every once in a while, even though it's not what I prefer. So yeah, like I said, going just a little bit overestimate, unfortunately, but that's okay. We are just making a straight jaunt over to the Mutant Lord, and then that's all she wrote for this game. Or this run, anyway. So, just to save a bit of time while I'm making my way over to the chamber, I do want to go ahead and give some shoutouts to the Blaster Master speedrunning community. If you'd like to join our Discord, please feel free to check any of the leaderboards, and the link should be there. And we do cover all sorts of Blaster Master stuff, not just Zero, not just the original, but all other games, like 2 on the Genesis, Blasting Again for the PlayStation, and yeah, just all that good jazz. If you want to be joining us, we'd be happy to teach you a thing or two. And yeah, these games are very much fun. Very, very worth it.
I would be happy for an excuse to pull out the Genesis and play Blaster Master 2 again.
So here we have the Mutant Lord's dungeon, and this is another case of a maze, except done in a way where I have to pick certain doors, otherwise I'm going to enter gauntlet rooms. The path to the lair is practically the same, except by doing it this way, this very last room would have given me a lot of rewards, which I could have maximized my gun that way, but instead I decided to do it the other way. The way at the beginning. Alright, now we're going to do a bit of a tango. I'm going to let David try to explain this one as I try to make this work.
Yeah, so the Underworld Lord is pretty much going to approach you and then every once in a while try to throw out a whip at you, but the whip can only go directly in front or diagonal 45-degree angles. So it's possible to just kind of see it coming and, yeah, just dodge it.
Alright, now for the final boss, the Mutant Overlord, or rather, the multi-dimensional Overlord, and time will be when his health runs out, so let's get ready. I'm hoping for a certain color. Let's see it?
Yeah,
Oh.
blue so that the striker works. Each different color of the multi-dimensional Overlord is weak to a different weapon, but the blue one takes the most damage the most quickly. But in most cases, like your level 1 gun is going to do a lot of damage really quick.
Time.
Look at that, we got some blue. GG.
Thank you. Woo, that was good. It was only nearly 2 minutes over the estimate, but that's perfectly fine by me. Honestly, that was a fairly decent run, getting to show off some of the cool stuff, some of the cool tricks, and I couldn't be any more grateful for that. So yeah, that was any percent. Unfortunately, that does mean we have to get the bad ending of this game, or technically the normal ending of this game. But let me tell you, if you want to experience what canonically happens in the trilogy, definitely get this game. It's fairly cheap and still goes on sale, at least with certain platforms anyway, because I know Inti doesn't always do, actually, I don't know if Inti has yet to do an Xbox sale. I was actually lucky because they were generous enough to throw in a little 20/15% off bonus for pre-ordering this, port. But, yeah, this game is still very cheap, very easy to get, and still does go on sale within some of the eShops of platforms and stuff, so yeah, definitely consider getting this game. The DLC characters are also especially easy to buy as well, and each offers a bunch of different variations to gameplay and just all that jazz. Really, really fun. And with that, that's Blaster Master Zero. Now, again, this is not the last time you're going to be seeing me. I'll be back soon with some Azure Striker Gunvolt right after Nerd Squared brings us some Scorn. But for now, David, because this is the only time I'll be having you on my commentary, where can these people find you?
Usually twitch.tv/DavidTKI. I'll probably stream some nights after my kids go to bed and be doing whatever I feel like doing at that exact moment, which is usually speedrunning of something retro, but my whims could change at any moment.
Heck yeah. Definitely give this man a follow. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. And let's see here. If you guys feel like you can't join the Gunvolt run, but you want to know where to follow me, I'm TempestMask1000 here on Twitch as well as YouTube, and I have Twitter at @It'sTempestSteve, where I do try to post any Twitch stream announcements there, because I do not have a static schedule. That's just the way I do. But feel free to come say hi. I very much welcome all and any and all newcomers, active or lurking. All right, with that said, I do believe we got Scorn coming up next, so let's throw it on over to Nerd Squared in a bit. But for now, ciao, Michi.